as it seems like, I don't know, you tried to sink my island or something
Yeah.
prematurely. Did I use my power unwisely? I don't know. But this is a
I literally
follow
put the
up.
staff down. I said, you shall not speak
Word of
your,
command?
yeah, yeah.
Something. So this is part two. This is actually episode two on episode one. How we think episode one is going to unfold. So I had one more idea that I wanted to get out there just to share because it popped into my mind. We were talking about ways that episode one could go down. Our introduction into this new chapter in Middle Earth, and one of the ideas I thought. So I went from Sauron climbing out of the rubble at the end of the War of Wrath to possibly just this introduction to Anatar and his deception and possibly tricking most of our audience into thinking that he's a good character when in fact, character reveal, whoa, he's actually Sauron, bad guy. But I also thought, so you theorized earlier or speculated that possibly we're going to focus in at the end of Numenor with Arthur Razon and
Yeah.
Ismael Cruz Cordova playing the final king of Numenor. I was even wondering, could we open this show with the founding, the gifting of Numenor from the High Elves to the Edain in thanks of their loyalty and their allegiance during the War of Wrath, when many men fled east, were tricked by Sauron, fought were tricked by Morgoth, became a part of Morgoth's forces.
That's right.
That
Yeah.
this group stayed faithful to the light, and in gratitude for the sacrifices and for their alliance, were rewarded this island of Numenor. Could we start with, like, I don't know, a gifting? I visualize we're on these great ships, so we're getting right into the mariner vibe of the Numenorians, and they're sailing for the first time to this island, and this presentation of this, what would become their kingdom, from the elves to them, a ceremony, a gifting, and maybe even juxtaposing that with what's going on with Sauron at the time.
Yeah. That
Could
actually
you see that
sounds,
happening?
yeah, I totally could. And what would be interesting, we talked about Elrond and Elros, right? And we talk about like
Yes.
the first ship's landing. What is it, like Second Age, the year 32 of the Second Age? I mean, that's literally when you see, Elros is that going over there. They're following
Yeah,
the star.
accepting his kingdom. Yeah.
Accepting the kingdom. Yeah, it's in the shape of a 5-pointed star, which I
Yep.
forgot, by the way. I went and looked at it. I was like,
Yeah, it's crazy, isn't it?
that's actually
Yeah.
pretty cool. But yeah, so you get all that symbolism. You start to understand why it was such a special thing that they got this. I guess if you don't talk about that, then that's it's tough to see, why is this so significant? Why are people so amped to see Numenor and understand its tie-in to the series and this race, this group of people who later on, during our Lord of the Rings, Fellowship, Two Towers, the whole 9 yards, right? When you have those rangers from the north and you have these men who were descended from this ancient kingdom, like, why is that so important? And why was it such a cool thing? Because in a later video, the founding of it, you want to talk about like there should be, knowing how it's given to them and knowing how Numenor was created, Ulmo raising it from the sea, the whole thing. It's this big happening at the end of the first age, going into the second. And what you find out throughout the course of the second age is you have this sort of this fighting, right, between like over time, you'll have kings who start to become, there's this faction. I want to do a video with you at some point where it's Kingsmen versus the Faithful. And this whole idea that they started to have different factions in Numenor. And to understand why that's important and why it was so significant that people were deviating. Because one of the things with Numenor is you can't sail west. You cannot go to Valinor. Like, it was like, we're going to give you this gift. This is what you get, but don't get more
Greedy.
Yeah, right. It's already a great gift, and then over time you can see how, whether it's Anatar or other individuals who start to kind of develop why shouldn't we have more? It's almost like that Bilbo situation where he's like, by rights it's mine. Why shouldn't I? I mean, this is why shouldn't I
Yeah.
keep it? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Type of thing.
Yeah.
And that does develop over time, but it's significant. I think you're right to see sort of that it's a gift. And we keep talking about that prologue, the idea that you could do an opening prologue where something happens. I mean, I hate to, I don't know what it would look like exactly, but I don't know how you convey that on the screen and show the raising of it and show that it was given to these men without really touching first age. You could just talk about it in a ceremony, or you see the ship sailing. You
see the ships arriving there. I think, and I also think like it could play into your vision of what this show could be too, especially with Our Pharaoh's Own. So you start with this gifting and this idyllic paradise, right? An arrival there, and then you could almost the contrast would be crazy, because you could end this series with its destruction.
Yeah.
And it would be visually stunning to look at those first scenes and compare them to how you could potentially end this show. So if you do focus heavily on Numenor, you've got your two bookends right there.
Right.
So as creators and showrunners, you could think, all right, here's our beginning point, here's our ending point. We're going to focus on all the drama in between. We're going to go back and forth between Numenor and what's happening in other areas of Middle Earth, but this is how we start. This is how we finish.
Yeah,
and we focus on the drama that happens in between. That would be sick. I mean, because everyone wants Numenor. Everyone wants to see that fleshed out. All the kings, the drama that happens, the factions, the cults, right? That Sauron even sort of has a hand in as well. So the deception that happens. It's kind of like Survivor Island version. You know what I mean? Like, not really. But, like, there's so much drama that happens just on that island. And even just, like, I know it's a huge island, but the fact that it is an island, you're right, there's that whole idea that there's nowhere to go. Like, you can't just go east or west. Like, they don't go to Middle Earth, the mainland, of, I guess you'd call it Middle Earth, right?
Yeah.
The areas that we're familiar with. So... interesting.
Well, and so I mean, like because we've bounced around a lot of ideas in these last couple videos, and I think it's all straight speculation. It's for fun. We've been talking about the idea that the interventions that are taking place. You can also show us two different places. You can totally show us.
Oh yeah.
I mean, gosh, like that whole. I mean, what's happening with Galadriel, Elrond, Gil-galad, the whole war.
Yep.
Exactly, and then Anatar's that continuing thread, but then show us Numenor. And if we can keep track of those two locations, and you start to see the war that's raging over here, that we keep seeing positive interventions. We keep seeing that Numenorians are coming over and intervening and helping, and that's a good thing. And so by the end, even when you get to our Pharazôn, you're like, wow, there we go. Another great intervention. This is the biggest host we've ever had. We're going for this. And something different happens. A different type of defeat takes place. And it ultimately brings about the downfall of Numenor. But like to see the phases, as you said, from a writer's perspective, we used to joke and think it'd be kind of fun to sit in there with Payne and McKay and wonder what they were doing. Be a fly on that wall and listen.
Just a fly on the wall, bro.
That's all I want to be. Because they're bouncing around all sorts of just awesome, great ideas.
I hope that they release an epic appendices or behind the scenes foot. I'm sure they will. But to see the conversations they're having or have had, I guess, in the past, the deliberation they've made, like it would be. Fascinating.
It would be fascinating. It really would. Yeah. And I think they're doing things just like, well, not just like this. Let's not toot our horn too much. They definitely have maps, and they're getting more precise than we are.
They're on a first name basis with a lot of these characters. So.
Yeah. So, but I think you like we keep talking about the contrast. Show us the beginning and then show us the end. Build to beginning to end. I didn't know how you really did it. I don't really know how to pull it off. But now that I think about Anatar and the elves, and I think about that continuation, they can keep walking us through the various kings. The kings live for a long time. We can shift through that, and that would be interesting. And one more point here, I meant to do this a couple videos ago, but I want to give a shout out to someone. Yeah, because this is kind of going to tie in. I learned an interesting tidbit. This is their YouTube channel is called Dork Lords, and it's Matt on Dork Lords, who I watched, and literally you can't get more dorky. That's a compliment, by the way, to Matt. So I'll put a link down to that because I was learning about these characters, and not many people are talking about them and just not scripted format. We're just talking off the cuff, and so he also does that. But I learned something, and he said on his channel, just to kind of fact check this, but when you look at the kings, look at those 25 kings of Numenor. Interesting, at the beginning of their the name Tar meant king in Elvish, so that they were taking on that mantle
like Tar
of
Palantir. Yeah, okay,
yes,
interesting.
Tar Palantir,
Yeah.
exactly, and that was the one leading into R Pharazôn, right?
Wow.
So R, why is it R versus Tar?
Yeah, there's no T.
Right? Yeah, and it happens throughout. If you look at all the kings, and one thing he pointed out, and this is why I love this. This is why I love to go dig in here and learn these different things. He said, now not always. He said it's not a 1-to-1 correlation, but he did say that you have those factions where the individuals who took on the title Tar versus R was the Numenorian naming for king. So men naming themselves.
Okay.
King.
Oh,
and
wow.
they were
Okay.
more kingsmen. They believed in the power of men. And
Yeah,
they
so
kinda,
more hubristic than less humble.
Exactly. And they started
Forgetting the past,
Yeah.
looking to the future, right?
Right. That was the faction that starts to kind of, that later on will be shifted by Anatar into the cult of Morgoth and the church.
That constant lesson, dude, of
it's
the
crazy.
need to be humble.
Yes.
Tolkien has it. Oh my gosh.
Right. And so I thought that was wild. And so when you look at those kings and you think about how they're going to develop this series from start to finish, I think the title of the king will tell us a lot about whether they were faithful to the Valar, still worshipped them, revered them, versus were more, shifting away from that and questioning and saying, where, and actually over time, if you watch from beginning to the end, you'll start to see more of like the Tar drops to R a lot more.
How Tolkien of it, or how Tolkien is it of him to make it based in language?
Right. I was blown.
Like,
I was like, that
it's
is
just
super cool. And
genius.
I didn't go through every single king. Obviously,
It's
I
awesome,
haven't
Matt.
done
Yeah.
that. But yeah, I wanted to give him a shout out because that was really cool.
Big shout
And I
out.
thought
That's cool.
as we speculate about the show, think about that and think about what are some of the problems with Numenor that we're going to see develop and drive through. And so I'm with you now 100%. You kind of have to see the gifting. You have to see Elros. You have to see Elrond. And then see how that just deteriorates over time,
Yeah.
It's crazy.
That'd be cool, right? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's just another little bonus idea that we had, and man, again, hopefully you're having conversations that spin off of this and spiral off of this. They just kind of naturally, as you start to familiarize yourself with the Second Age, you start thinking, okay, could they start here? How could they start here? How could they work their way through this expansive timeline that would be ridiculous? I don't know. Would it be ridiculous to do from beginning to end? Yeah, probably. But could they?
Well, I'm
pull it
for
off?
it. I'm here for it.
We're all for it. Like, let's make it happen. And that you're talking with your friends and other lovers of Middle Earth and Tolkien about how this can all pan out and where our focus will be and what it will lead to. So, man, it's all exciting. And I love that we're coming at this and we're excited about it. Like, I think 99% of us as a community are filled with nothing but hope and excitement and anticipation. And the one clickbaiters, they can keep having their little hissy fits. That's cool. We'll sit at the kids' table and eat cake and enjoy the beauty of a moist Middle Earth cake.
Let's go. If
I made you cringe, you're welcome. All right. Well, I think we're one more that we're going to film tonight. But I got to take a potty break. So that Bilbo knows.